We're live. All right, welcome back. Week 2, Truth Hour. Cliff and Trishanda, thank you guys for joining on IG. If you want to post questions, Shonda's going to field most of those on IG. If you want your questions to show up on the screen, then you need to head over to YouTube. And I very recently put the link in. Sorry, I didn't do that last night. If you want to post questions and have them appear on screen, then post them on YouTube or on Facebook. All right. Yes, we did hot takes on TikTok. I'm gonna have to block you, JP, if you keep calling me Clifford. All right. So the plan originally was to discuss TikTok, obviously, flipping the Senate, and
originally it was term limits.
And term limits. So the first two are going to be the same, but we decided when we got the world breaking news that U.S. Senator Kamala Harris is the new VP choice of former Vice President Joe Biden, that it makes the most sense to start the show with that. So that's what we're going to do. But before we do that, unless you had anything.
No, I know you want to share something with the world, even though this is better news.
Before we do that, it only makes sense that we start off the show with what's on most people's minds. I hope you guys can hear it. If you can't hear it, so my screen. All right, so they don't need to take up the whole time. But I've been seeing so much commentary on the song, on the video, and I wrote somebody recently, and my thoughts are very simple. To compare Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion's music to yesteryear is foolish for this reason to me. Art is ever evolving. And so, of course, the music that we're hearing today is going to be different than the music we heard growing up. It's going to be different than the music our parents heard. It's going to be different from the music our parents heard growing up. So to me, these kind of cross-generational musical comparisons are silly. But beyond that, to hear Ben Shapiro and conservative radio, that like radio show host, to say that this is the most vulgar piece of art that he's ever heard, like, to me was a bit, it was a bit extreme. Like, he was reading the lyrics verbatim, and he substituted pussy, because the name of the song is WAP, W-A-P, wet ass pussy. He substituted pussy with P word. And I'm thinking, your president was bragging about sexually assaulting women using the P word. He said he was very proud of his pussy grabbing exploits. So to me, it's like, this is a bit hypocritical. But it's like, the song, I like it, but beyond me liking the song, like, it's art. And just like if you go to a museum, like, you get to choose what you want to stand in front of and look at and enjoy. If you don't like the song, turn the dial, right? Now I won't filibuster the time. I know you had some thoughts on the video and the song.
So the only thing I'll add in, I did not understand why Kylie Jenner needed to be in the video. It was great just with Meg and Cardi B. What purpose did she serve? She wasn't there to dance, other than having a body. But at the very end, in the doorway, you see all the other females dancing. So I just felt like, why even use her right now in this moment? That's all I had. Other than that, I'm with you, Cliff. If you don't like it, then turn it off. There's a lot of other music out there, new music, in fact. So if you don't like it, turn. And other thing is, we don't need white men criticizing women, like Black women, women of color, in the decisions that we're making in terms of the music that we're creating and how we're making money. That's what we don't need to do. So Ben Shapiro, we're not even checking for him right now in his comments.
But even CeeLo Green was hating on the song, and I'm thinking, you didn't worry about
really?
women,
yeah,
allegedly, so I don't get sued. stop allegedly drugging women and then taking advantage of them. Like, you got other issues. Like,
Right.
CeeLo Green wrote a song titled "F You." Like, what? I don't know what leg he has to stand on to criticize this song, which is 10 times better than "F You." To me, like we're talking about art, and you have two of the most talented, if not the two most talented artists currently in the game collaborating on a project. Like, we've been begging for a J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar collaboration for years, and we haven't gotten it. But like, we get one from two mega stars, and people are hating because they're showing some of their body because they don't like the lyrics. Well, then, you know what? Then you don't deserve good art. Like, if you're gonna hate on this song, which is objectively entertaining and good, then you just don't deserve to be happy. Like, you and I had more hot takes like off the show, but it's like, to me, like, I was not prepared for the response to this song that I've heard.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on the individuals, because I think Black Twitter was excited, and the other thing is, I've seen a lot of females excited. Like, who doesn't want to see two of the biggest rappers right now come together? And I think that's big when especially for female rappers, if they're able to do that. So I'm celebrating it.
Yeah, one person commented, and I don't know if that's a thumbs down to the song. Give us more. Tell us more. Why is there a thumbs down to the song? I don't know what to make of this comment.
And so for those that are just joining us on IG Live, we're talking about the latest song with Meg Thee Stallion and Cardi B. And to add to that, I mean, there were a lot of celebrities that were having fun with it. Haley said, I shared with Cliff the meme that Viola Davis had put out. And so it was interesting because if you do watch the show, or if you had watched the show, How to Get Away with Murder, she was known for drinking, dancing. Those were elements of her character, aside from her being an amazing attorney. But she played with it, you know. So it's like, yeah, maybe she's not going to go around saying the words, but there's a lot of people that can still have fun with it. So let
us know in the comments. I'm curious to know what other people's thoughts are. I mean, obviously, my close friend group has told me their view of the song and the video. I mean, I watched the video strictly for research purposes. I needed to make sure I was prepared to have this conversation. So I watched it one time just to prepare, and I took notes and moved on. But let us know in the comments what your thoughts are.
One time. I have fire emojis. Tell me your name. She wrote, greatness never duplicates itself in the same fashion. There is no comparison to 90s hip hop, good or bad.
I wish he put that so I could put that up on screen. So Brian said, greatness. It's gone on mine. Greatness never duplicates itself in the same fashion. There is no comparison to 90s hip hop. Yeah, but see, this is, and I can, like, if we look at this objectively, we grew up, right? I'm born in the mid 80s, so grew up in the 90s. Like, yes, of course, I believe that 90s hip hop is supreme or superior to all music today. But I imagine kids today think like Roddy Ricch and DaBaby are the greatest things to happen to music, right? And I disagree with them because it's a different era. The music is different. Like, to me, I take Bone Thugs over Migos. A lot of people don't ride with me on that one, but it's like I grew up listening to Bone Thugs. I didn't grow up listening to Migos. And I think it's okay to have those subjective, like, different views of what you prefer. But to me, I still wouldn't criticize Migos' style. I wouldn't say that they're pushing back women's liberation for decades, because I think, if anything, this is the epitome of women's liberation, right? Because it's showing like, hey, you can be whoever the F you want to be, and you can show off your exploits or not, and whatever you choose to do, it's on you, and it's great. All right. So that was my thoughts on it. I just wanted to start with that, something a little different. So Cardi B, Meg Thee Stallion, you guys have my vote of confidence. Support it, love the song. Any haters, just ignore them. All right.
I'm just excited for the song.
Oh, no, not there. Oh, you know what? I have not updated this. I don't even have a banner yet. So I'm going to let you start. What are your thoughts on Joe Biden picking Kamala Harris?
Okay, we'll take that one down. But so I'm excited. There were a few people that text me, and so I hope last week I didn't confuse anyone. I was going to be excited for Kamala, whether it was her or, I mean, the question that was posed is who. I think the question that was posed last week was, who do I think is the best candidate? Well, and then it was also, who's the best candidate to beat Donald Trump. So I was a Kamala supporter when she ran for president.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for her to now be the VP. For her, I'm going to claim it. She's going to be the vice president. And what happens after the first 4 years, we'll see. But you know what happens next from there. But
you got me knocking on wood. Let's not get too crazy. It's early.
I'm claiming it. I'm going to claim it that she's going to be the vice president. What I seen, I mean, I was excited. My dad was the first person to call me because I put my phone down. And I had been checking my phone throughout the day, but just in that little span of time, they sent us the email from the campaign. And then you called me. And then that's when, at the same time when you called, that's when they had put out the message. Like all the media was going crazy. And then all the texts start coming in. But it's just, I felt like I could cry. But then it was just like, okay, hold on. Let's not, I couldn't take myself there to that moment because it hasn't happened yet officially, but to see a Black woman, like the first Black U.S. senator, like female U.S. senator for California, and to see like all the things that she's done in spite of everything that was against her, someone who went to a HBCU and has continued to fight for representation and have a seat at the table, it's a big deal. And also for her to be a child of two immigrants, I think that says a lot for bringing the Democrats or just further people into the coalition. I think that there's a real opportunity, and she definitely has now re-energized the party. What about you?
So initially, if anyone wants to roll back the tape on me, I mean, last week I argued that the best option for Joe Biden to win was Stacey Abrams. And the reason I thought that was because I believe Stacey Abrams best expanded the electorate for Joe Biden, meaning she put states like Georgia in play and made Texas a little more competitive. But I also said at the top of my remarks that my top pick is Kamala Harris. And the reason for that is because outside of the geographic interests of Stacey Abrams, I think from an ideological standpoint, Kamala Harris checks all the boxes, right? If you're a young progressive voter and you've been looking for a progressive that's going to fight for environmental protections, this is your ticket. If you have family members who have migrated here, or if you have very close friends or family that have pending citizenship status, this is your ticket. If you're concerned with your student loan debt, or if you're thinking about pursuing higher education, this is your ticket, right? If you're thinking about police reform, this is your ticket. If you're thinking about criminal justice reform, this is your ticket. If you're concerned with women's rights, and not just because we talk about women's rights and it always kind of diverts into a conversation about reproductive health and reproductive rights, but even beyond that, like, what about fair pay? What about pay equity, right? Gender pay equity? So, like, to me, this ticket checks all the boxes with him picking Kamala. And I tried to listen to some of the punditry after I got the alert today, and it was in the middle of a workout, and I'm one of the few that keeps my ringer on because I don't want to miss any breaking news. So when I saw the alert, I was like, I literally had to stop my workout, just jump in. Then first thing I did was call you. Excited. And I disagree with the punditry that Kamala Harris is not going to drive or energize voter turnout. What? Of course it is. Mm-hmm. If he would have went with a 70-year-old mediocre white woman, no offense to Elizabeth Warren, but that's what you are. Like, the voters, like, clearly rejected your candidacy. They didn't want you at the top of the ticket. They don't want you at the bottom of the ticket. I'm glad he didn't pick you. But like, if he would have said, Elizabeth Warren is my pick, people wouldn't have been excited. If he would have said, the Congresswoman from California, Karen Bass, is my pick, people wouldn't have been excited. I think people might have got excited about Tammy Duckworth because it would have been the first Asian American vice presidential candidate. But to me, it was three options. It was Stacey Abrams, Kamala Harris, Susan Rice. And he made the right pick. She checks all the boxes. So unlike 4 years ago, with Tim Kaine at the bottom of the ticket, and you had progressive stay home, there's no excuse. Even for Bernie or Bernie bros, like Bernie or bust folks, like, there's no reason to stay home this election.
All right. Well, I'm gonna combat that because we have some comments here. And
okay.
So a few of the things. So Percy, I'm assuming that's your first name. It
Justin.
Says Justin. My apologies. It says, will she acknowledge and apologize for the hurt she caused when it comes to truancy laws in California and locking up so many Black and brown people on weed charges? And I also want to just add to that because of what you're saying, Cliff, because one of the things that is coming up, this was already scrutinized as her potential, like when she was being vetted as a candidate, a lot of people love her, but then this was some of the pushback from a few Dems and then people that are familiar with her in California in terms of her record on criminal justice. And especially when we're talking about criminal justice reform, what do you think that means? And to answer Justin's question.
So I think this. She's a prosecutor. They have a job, ultimately. And to me, the criticism was not off base of her record. I think people taking a critical eye of folks' professional experience is important. However, what I think is unfair is this idea of rebranding history to fit a new progressive puritanical model. Because if you prop people up as this savior, then you're never going to find the right candidate. She can't be criticized for doing her job. Now, people can say she did the job poorly, but not people arguing that. She was actually a brilliant prosecutor in San Francisco, which made her a viable candidate to be the first Black female attorney general of the largest state in this country. So, and if you follow the record and track the record, and I'm no Kamala apologist, but if you track her record after her time, since she was a district attorney in San Francisco, and while she was an attorney general of California, so all the time since she was the DA, all she has done professionally is work to reform the relationship between the system and police, and she has worked actively to fight against some of the injustices, the questions that were posed earlier. So to me, it's not off base, but I hope that doesn't distract from the strength of this ticket. There's a lot of potential in this ticket. Was there other?
No, I don't have any that came in.
Okay.
But I agree, there is a lot of potential. You know, one of the things that you and I talked about when we said we're not going to go far, we're not going to go deep into it for today's call, but maybe on a future call is just what this means for the future of the next administration with Kamala being on the ticket and the people that will serve in his cabinet. So it's great to have representation and have someone like her that you know will actually fight for us, like for Black and brown communities and for the issues that we care about.
What I hope this doesn't turn into is, because we're going to see it on the Republican side, this should not turn into a referendum on Black voters, right? Because I've heard today, and it's frustrating, like Kamala Harris was a smart pick because now she solidifies the Black vote. What? Kamala Harris is a brilliant pick for 1,000 reasons, like beyond the fact that the Black vote is probably going to be excited about her candidacy. Also, the Asian vote's going to be excited about her candidacy. But she's a great pick because she's a career prosecutor in a time like so let's juxtapose Kamala Harris's career prosecutorial record versus the current administration and their serial criminal negligent behavior. So if we look at the contrast of those two real world experiences, I think the Biden-Harris ticket has a pretty compelling message to convey to the world. It's like we have a career prosecutor, we have a career public servant, versus we have a serial criminal who has found different ways to skirt the law and bend the law to his will. So beyond like, oh, Black people are going to come out to vote, like I think Kamala Harris is a brilliant pick for so many other reasons outside of the color of her skin. Like people should look at her dissection of Brett Kavanaugh and why he was such a flawed candidate to sit on the highest court in this land. People should go back and rewatch that tape. And they'll understand, oh, this is part of the reason Biden picked her. She plays no games. She does all her research. She's always prepared. And she will make sure that the facts dictate everything that she's saying. You're not going to catch her in a lie. You're not going to catch her making up anything. She is a precision knife. That's why I think she was such a good pick. And I was excited. Although I thought Abrams made the most. And this is, I'll wait. I'll let you.
No, I'm listening.
So I thought Abrams was the best pick for Biden because she expanded the electorate. I'm proud that a 70-year-old, how old is Joe Biden? Is he 71? He old. I know he's old, but like how old?
Let's check. He is 77.
You're lying. He's 77 years old?
Yes. Oh, yeah, he is, because they were saying that he'd be 81 after the first 4 years. Yeah, somebody said he's 77. All right, yeah. I just looked it up too.
That man is 70. That's so old to be running a country.
Well, so much to keep your poker face. You're really expressing yourself.
Oh, sorry. 77. He's a young man. Okay. I'm proud. It's weird to say I'm proud of this 70-something. I'm proud that a 77-year-old man who's clearly wanted to be president for the past 30 years, right? Found a way to set aside political differences and make the best decision. Because choosing a vice president, like he said months ago at a debate, is about choosing the person who, God forbid, if something happens to him, is ready on day one to step in and fill the shoes and command our troops, to lead the country, to really be that vocal and symbolic leader that the country has been sadly missing the past three and a half years. So yeah, that's why I love this pick. I love this pick. I love this pick. I thought he had two other good options with Susan Rice and Stacey Abrams, but I love this pick.
I don't have anything. I don't have anything to say. I've been posting about it for the last few hours. I'm excited.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, 77 to me is, and I think we like, for those of us that like are fortunate to have like older family members still with us, we appreciate the wisdom that they can impart on us and with us. But we also recognize they might struggle to get up and down stairs. They might have some like 77. And I'm not going to make this a moratorium on his age.
I think it's time to go to the next subject.
He's 70. Okay, I'm moving on.
Ages.
I'm not an ageist. I'm a realist. He's going to be commander-in-chief and chief executive and head of state. It matters.
It does matter. But were y'all not looking at his age when he first decided to run?
I mean, to repeat from last week, I voted for Kamala Harris.
I know. I'm just putting that out there.
All right.
Oh, so I see this.
Oh, we got one more.
Comments, yeah.
There is wisdom with Biden's age. No one runs the country alone. The supportive cast play a very important role. No, that's very true. I agree with that statement. So this is why I think, and we talked about this earlier. So stay tuned next week. We're going to talk about if Biden were to win. I'm not going to be crazy like my colleague here and just throw out victories before they happen. I'm knocking on wood.
Guys,
but if Biden wins,
it's manifesting. That's all.
If Biden wins, I think the cabinet is a place where he needs to continue to put women in power, not just women of color, but I think women and smart young people. So I completely agree with this statement. You said you had comments from IG that I can't see.
Oh, Levi said he would be the oldest president ever inaugurated. I'm pretty sure that was the only thing that came in.
Yeah, yes, it's true. And we compare that with the gorgeous progressive to the north of us and Justin Trudeau. And all right, moving on. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to listen to you and move on. All right. So I don't even know how we got into this topic. We were talking a few weeks ago. It's like, I don't know if you want to put your resume out there, but you were the communications director for a current sitting member of Congress. I won't say names if you don't want to.
And I'm not gonna say names.
So you were the communications director for a currently sitting member of Congress in one of the 50 states. And this congressperson has been in office a very, very, very long time, since 1993. And don't worry, that's not going to like narrow it down too much because there's actually a part from that year.
There's a lot.
But
I see how you're trying to play this right now, Cliff.
I'm not saying any names. No one's going to know who you worked for. But
I mean, it's fine. You guys can go and research. But the way that this conversation came up is because last week, during the Missouri primary last week. No. Hold on. So this is the problem. There's so many members of Congress that have been there, like Cliff said, for a long time. And when I say a long time, I'm saying over 20 years. They are over the age of 60. So they're like our grandparents' age. However, they're not grooming other people in the community. And there's people that consistently run against them and they lose. And a lot of these members, they're winning based off of name recognition. And yet their districts are still suffering. The constituents are still suffering. And there hasn't been many changes. And so I mentioned to Cliff, it was interesting because the results had came out last week. And it was for, Benny Thompson. Benny Thompson will be the convention chair, the Democratic convention chair, even though the convention is virtual. So we were talking about him, and he's a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, but he's also served for over 10 years, over 15 years. But one of the members that actually lost was one of the representatives in Missouri. I'd have to look up the district. And he lost to a younger black representative that challenged him. And this was really big. So because in 2018, during the mid-year elections, there were a lot of people that lost their elections because you had people like Representative AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who went up against Joe Crowley, which is one of the districts in New York. And she actually beat him, and a lot of people downplayed her win. They didn't want to jump behind her, but she energized the Democratic base and outside of just outside of her own district in New York. And at that time, it really said a lot, because now what she was able to do, her and Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, I forget the representative's name from that represents Detroit.
Rashida Tlaib?
Yes. But what they've been able to do is they're showing that they're willing to show up for their constituents and more. And they're willing to address the issues that we're saying are important, and they're not afraid to go up against others within the Democratic Party. So yes, they're saying that they're Democrats and that we elected them to represent us.
Yeah.
But what's important is they're not being controlled by lobbyists. And so I'll leave it there and allow you to give some of your thoughts about this before we go into more with it.
The only reason, so when I think of term limits, because we actually haven't given, because I wonder if you and I differ on if we had to make a proposal to a committee tasked with preparing notes for a constitutional convention, if we could finally have another one, what you would support, right? Because we're talking about folks. So in the U.S. Senate, there are 3 current sitting members who have been in the Senate longer than I've been alive, right? I'll be 35 in 3 weeks. That's a long time to serve in any legislative body. And then in the House, you've got a whole host of folks. I don't even think I wrote them all. I got Don Young, Jim Sensenbrenner, Hal Rogers, Steny Hoyer, Peter DeFazio. Like they've all been in longer. No, not DeFazio. He was 87, but it's like that's a lot of people. Even Nancy Pelosi's been in since 87. Like, and some of these people are folks that on both sides that I'm sure people revere for good reason, right? Susan Collins has represented the people of Maine proudly, and I'm sure they appreciate her service. Same goes for Mitch McConnell. I clearly don't agree with Mitch McConnell on a fraction of the decisions that he makes, but there's a reason that Kentuckians continue to elect the guy, right? The question that I ask is, did the framers of the Constitution intend for this to become a monopolistic position? Did they intend for folks to hold these positions in perpetuity? And I struggle to think that if we had the opportunity to exhume the remains, right, of some of those folks and bring them back to life and ask them, what do you think about people serving in these bodies for a third of a century? To me, it does not. It seems a little far-fetched to assume, oh yeah, they would be supportive of folks holding these positions for this long, right? But 35 years in the House?
Yeah.
What we see, or
no,
like,
right.
what
I
we
was just gonna
see
add.
with like the 4 that you named, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, what you can see is, and even if you go on the Republican side with Paul Ryan, because I believe he was in his early to mid 30s the first time he was elected in Wisconsin. So, and he's done a lot for this country. I mean, again, I don't support all of Paul Ryan's policies, but if I'm a conservative, I'm happy with his term in office. I may not be so happy with what he did as Speaker, but he had a little tough road with working with the White House. But what he did as a member of the House, heck, what he did working with Mitt Romney, right? So if you elect young people, but you can get to young people if what doesn't happen? What disallows us from having young people in office?
The voting, them participating. Wait, you're seeing them money.
Having elder statesmen refuse to give up these roles. And this is actually, so this comes on the heels of a person that we all like objectively believe is a hero, John Lewis. He is objectively a hero. There should be a statue of this man in the nation's capital, and there may be a holiday for him one day. Do I think John Lewis should have held the office that he held for as long as he held it? I do not. And again, he's a person who I probably pretty close to lockstep with in terms of policy and his voting record. But that doesn't mean that somebody else didn't deserve an opportunity to be in that role. Nobody should serve, to me, half their life in a legislative body.
So what would you? So if you had the opportunity to make an amendment,
yeah,
what would be your suggestion? What would be?
Yeah, well, I've always advocated. I might have to post another YouTube video. I've always advocated for another constitutional convention. I think it's far past time. The time is now for us to have another constitutional convention. We're operating off of a document written hundreds of years ago that doesn't, like, women couldn't vote. Like, there's so many, like, I'm still not a full person in that original document. And people say, well, it's been amended. Yeah, it's been amended. Let's just scrap the thing and rewrite it. That's my view. If you disagree, let us know. But so I would advocate for 12 years maximum, both bodies. To me, it's foolish that the Senate serves for a term 3 times as long as the House. They should all serve 4-year terms, and they should be maxed at 3 terms. Now, if you want to go from the House to the Senate, I'm good with that. I would hope that wouldn't happen, but I'm sure it could happen. So technically, you could, in my model, you could serve for 24 years. If you've got a constituency base that continues to support your candidacy for 2 decades, right? Mm-hmm. But to me, you shouldn't be able to serve more than 12 years in the nation's highest legislative body. Mm-hmm. Because most people living in any city, so whatever city you live in, there's either a charter or some type of ordinance that has a restriction on term limits for your mayors, for city members of city council. Like, almost in every state and local government, there's restrictions. It shouldn't just be president, vice president, and local government that has these restrictions on the length of time you can serve. It should also apply for members of our highest lawmaking body.
Mm-hmm. Well, are you reading the comment from Facebook? So just to add while you're reviewing that, so like Cliff mentioned, there are term limits for local elected officials, and also for, so you have restrictions in terms of who can actually run for office, because there's age requirements.
Yep.
So to say that they put age requirements when they drafted the Constitution, but then they didn't actually stipulate what those terms are that they can serve, that's what I have an issue with.
So I'm gonna answer Levi's question from IG, and then I'm gonna go back to Marietta's question on Facebook.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Levi asked 3 terms total or 3 consecutive terms. To me, 3 terms total. I don't care if they serve them consecutively or if they serve a term, go run a business, serve another term, go back to their business and serve their last term. Just 12 years total. Because my goal is to kind of end those dynastic political dynasties, right? That's definitely I said that twice, dynastic and dynasty, but like to end like political dynasties essentially is the goal. So I would say 3 total. But if you think it should be different? Are there other ones in IG that I missed?
No.
Oh, thanks. Okay, I just saw your. All right, I'm gonna go back to.
So you can read Mary's
question. All right, so this one says there are limits to a term for each congressional body. The thinking is the elections are the limits. Yeah, but the problem is, so I love that. Like in theory, this is correct. So our elections are meant to serve kind of as those term limits. But the problem is when you inject gerrymandering into the equation, there are members in Congress who are in like districts that are so gerrymandered that they're never going to be like put out of office. So it's like we're not going to see them. But to the second half of the point, I think so. Experience is valuable at learning the ropes of legislating. I wholly agree. I don't think it takes 30 years. I don't think it takes 20 years. I don't think it takes 16 years. I think experience is valuable, and that's why it's tough to uproot an incumbent. So people that are getting excited about Biden and Harris, they're going up against an incumbent, and that could be a whole other conversation for another day. And you just remind me we have 20 minutes. But so I think there is value to experience, but how much experience do we want people to have before they kind of relinquish the reins, right, to somebody else who should be in that position? All right, we got another comment. Experience is valuable, but I don't think right now there is a way to differentiate between elections based on merit and elections based on name recognition alone. So, name recognition. One big reason that Kamala Harris was picked over Biden's former cabinet mate, Susan Rice, is name recognition. And his right, like, his staffers can try to put out to the media, oh, he made this decision because she ran a national campaign. Because nah, people know who she is. He couldn't make the same mistake that Hillary made with Tim Kaine, because even folks in the know, right, were like, Tim who? Wait, who? Tim who? Who? Tim who? Right? Nobody's saying Kamala who. We all know who Senator Harris is. Right. We all watched her destroy Brett Kavanaugh. Right? We all watched her run for president, get robbed. we know who she is. So name recognition is important, but to differentiate between name recognition and merit, to me, you typically have the name recognition because you've earned it through your merit. That's my view of it. But that there's obviously some exceptions, because it didn't work for Jeb Bush. He had all the name recognition and the family dynastic power at his disposal, and that did not help him. So sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, there lies the problem. Gerrymandering. Gerrymandering's a problem. Anybody else? Do we have more on IG? No? All right. So, here we go. Oh, you've been waiting for this. So what's in your view, or actually, before I can even ask that, first I have a yes or no. I hate asking yes or no, but first I have a yes or no, and then depending on your answer is my follow-up. So just quick yes or no. Do you find it problematic that Trump is attempting to force the sale of TikTok?
So this is a yes or no?
That is a yes or no. Do you think it's problematic?
Yes.
Okay.
It's hard to say yes, because there's also a no. Once I did more research on that.
What's the other side?
Issue.
Why do you say no? What's your no?
So I say no because of the security risk that TikTok poses. But then when you compare other platforms that are also taking all of our information, that's where I feel like it's tricky, because we're not forcing them to do the same.
Yeah. So
no, the one thing I want to add though too.
Yeah.
What sucks about this is because now it's turned into a political thing, because we want to, of course, protect ourselves. We want our privacy. It's the whole thing that we went through with Facebook. At one point, no one wanted to blame Facebook for what took place during the 2016 election, and just how much information was shared and the ads that they allowed, what they're continuing to allow, I would like to say. But at some point, there has to be accountability. Will that come during this administration? I don't think so, in terms of TikTok. But is it a political move for him to do that at this moment? Definitely. It definitely is.
So we have a comment on Twitter, or excuse me, on IG. They agree. They said you would be surprised of the amount of times a day that your data and information is compromised. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think most people, common sense, right? You sign up for these social media platforms, you understand, like, you sign that user agreement. If you've read just part of it, you realize there's going to be a lot of threat.
Or if you didn't read it, that's the problem. People continue. You want to sign in so fast, and there's definitely text there at the bottom, and you've now already made yourself liable. Like you've opted in.
I imagine you don't think most people.
No.
Hopefully, maybe all TikTokers will vote now. I mean, you have to imagine, like, most people recognize that your information can be compromised. So that's why it's smart, like, what you do and don't keep on your phone, like how you interact on social media. Because if you pop off, right? If you're consistently popping off, if somebody hacks you, we're not going to know the difference if someone goes in and puts some nonsense up there. But if you, I mean, you know, does it make sense? Like, so, and let me disclaimer, IG and folks on Facebook and YouTube, I don't have TikTok. I think I may have made an account. I've never posted anything. I don't have the app on my phone.
Guys, he has a video. He doesn't remember downloading. Mm-hmm.
So I don't have TikTok. I could care less about TikTok. If I'm being completely honest, if it goes away, I'm not impacted at all. I mean, the only impact to me would be like my students can't like show me TikTok dances anymore. But again, does that impact me? I'm good. If there's no TikTok, my life is fine, right? So this isn't about that. The reason I find it problematic is because it's a business. Mm-hmm. And I don't happen to be an entrepreneur right now, but what if one day I did want to be, and there was a government official who, for political reasons, was attempting to force me to sell my company because I had different political ideological beliefs than that person. That's why it's problematic, because I always think of precedent, and I don't want to make a slippery slope argument, but if Congress allows Trump to utilize whatever power he has to force the sale of this company, which he's alleging is because China will now have access to our information, like, so you're fine with Zuckerberg having all of our information? We saw what he could do with info, right? So, like, to me, that reason doesn't pass the smell test. So that's not a good enough reason. This idea that now China is enhancing their threat to our information. Mm-hmm. We have to think about the Sherman Antitrust Act, because people always think of Sherman Antitrust and the only role that Sherman plays is stopping monopolies from forming. No, Sherman Sherman has it's further reaching than just preventing monopolies from forming. It also stops lawmaking bodies, where I imagine the president would fall under something similar. It stops lawmakers from preventing commerce. How is nobody standing up? Like, you would think conservatives, liberals, progressives, right, libertarians, this would be the most unifying principle. This idea that a single political individual does not have the authority in this country that allegedly thrives and purports itself to be the world's model of capitalism. You would think that if all places in this country, we would not allow political motives to determine which businesses get to continue to operate. But for some reason, that's not happening. This is, to me, and again, like, Sherman is not, like, that's not my expertise, like, more of a constitutional scholar. But to me, this idea that a politically motivated individual can determine whether or not a business can continue to operate is a clear violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. And we should have senators from both sides of the aisle, members of the House of Representatives from both sides of the aisle, standing up on chairs, screaming to the heavens that this cannot be done, that this is wrong, we don't do this. And if you think it's a security breach or security threat, it's simple. What did I just do? Oh, I uninstalled it from my phone. So if you don't want your stuff stolen, don't use it. But if you're not worried about that, then allow folks to continue to use it.
But do you think that after, because he gave them a September deadline, I think it's September 15th or something like that, do you think that's why there's no uproar yet? Because it's not that he shut it down. It's just he's now forcing them to make a decision in terms of who purchased the company. Like, he's saying that he wants it to be a U.S.
So the problem is, it's difficult, and I don't want this to become like a moratorium on Trump's like false statements. But from the past 3 years, and even during his candidacy, it's difficult to know when he's telling the truth. Like, is this something that he's going to follow through on? We don't know when he's telling us the truth. So right. Is this a hard and fast, is this an actual line in the sand? If it's not sold on that September deadline that he gave, is he going to utilize his power to prevent them from continuing to operate in this country? That's the question I have. And right. We haven't really gotten an answer to that, because all he said is, well, we're hoping Microsoft or some other company can step in and take over. Like, I wish I would start something from scratch, build it, have people excited about it, and then a politician says, well, now you've got to sell to Limo Studio, right? Like, to me, it's like, wait, what? I got to sell what? It took me 10 years to build, right? Like, I've been working on Mason Report since law school. What is someone, and it finally takes off. Let's say I actually start getting a few readers and viewers, and then some politician's like, I don't like how this guy wrote about me. Let's force him to sell. Now you got to sell to ABC. Like, what? No, I'm not selling. What are you talking about? Like, to me, it's crazy. Talk me off a ledge. Like, why am I? Maybe something's wrong with me, because I think you see it differently.
I don't see it differently. I'm just saying I see both sides of it in terms of the argument they're making. But what you're saying, as far as why is there no uproar right now on both sides, I do think I feel like the reason why there's no uproar right now is because a decision hasn't been made. So closer to that time, because again, it might be just empty threats that he's putting.
Not because we're closer to an election. You think it's because just he hasn't actually decided. So why don't you act preemptively? Like, if I'm a member of Congress, I'm gonna act preemptively. I'm not gonna wait until this clown actually shuts down a multinational corporation.
So I just want to point out that there's August recess. Congress failed to put together a stimulus plan. So is TikTok really our biggest concern right now in the middle of COVID? I'm just asking for the average American. I mean, like you said, TikTok is not really impacting us.
I'm going to go back to the questions. But so what did Grace say? Maybe all the TikTokers
will vote now. Yeah, but so then what you're saying is that you prefer them now to hurry and make a decision on that, because then it becomes political. But they couldn't do anything about the millions of people who are unemployment right now.
So I reposted the question because you asked, what about the average American? I think if we're talking about this Gen Z, I think Gen Z does care about the future of this new social media app.
Right. Well, we know that they care. They're the main ones using it. And
that's become the largest voting group.
Right. But what I'm saying is that I don't see it differently.
Yeah.
But what I don't like seeing is that we continue to play politics with everything. So if you're going to go and address TikTok, then then they should have stayed and they should have figured out something in terms of what they're going to do about the unemployment rates and people that are unable to work right now and are not receiving paychecks from their state unemployment offices.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why I'm saying that I don't know if that's why they didn't do anything, because they didn't address the bigger issue. I mean, putting together a package right now for people that are unemployed is very important during an election year and just for people's livelihood.
I don't disagree with you. To me, there's a simple solution. The Speaker of the House, the majority leader in the Senate could have a joint press conference, and they could say unequivocally, we do not support any lawmaker for politically motivated reasons disrupting the commerce of any institution.
Right.
Now, if there's other legitimate concerns, that's a conversation. But from all of Trump's statements, he's only indicated that it's like he's only given kind of superficial security fears as to why he wants to shut them down. But if that was true, he wouldn't be trying to get them to sell to an American company. He's trying to use this as an additional kind of campaign feather in his cap and say, oh, look at all these jobs I brought to Microsoft. Look, I just brought in another foreign company. I brought this into the country. And for people not to see past that, to me, it's like,
So I do want to add something because it's important to fact check here.
Okay.
Our article from Politico back in July 20th. Lawmakers voted to pass the proposal offered by Rep. Ken Buck as part of a package of bipartisan amendments to the National Defense Authorization Act. So what they did, it was a prohibition that would extend to members in Congress and congressional staff. They banned TikTok on their phones. So that was, I mean, in terms of what are they doing, that's one thing that they did.
They banned it on their phones.
They banned it on their phones.
That's 535 people.
It says, this vote, it bars federal employees from downloading the video sharing app, TikTok, on government issued devices.
People can't use it.
More than that.
What about the 50 million Americans?
Yeah. But I'm just telling, look, I'm just fact checking you, all right? Just let you know what was done, okay?
Well, that's not doing anything
now,
to protect business.
Yes, exactly. That's what we have.
Oh, we're getting close. All right. Anyone have any last minute points, comments, anything they wanted to share?
Let me see here.
Because if not, we can give you like a quick look ahead. So we're going to, for sure, well, depending if the world falls out again in the late afternoon like it did today, and they change up on us what's going to happen. So assuming that things go normally, which in this country, what is normal? We'll be discussing flipping the Senate from the Republican majority to the Democratic majority and which races you might want to take a look at. And that's going to be an interesting conversation because there's some races that folks have claimed are going to be toss-ups that I think are no possible way the Dems have a shot. And there's ones that are pretty much in the Republican notch, and I think that Dems do have a shot. So that's next week. And
I'm not sure her name, but she said, "Have you read any of those books behind you?" Cliff?
We got 26 seconds remaining. Of course I have. Hater. Thank you all for joining on IG Live and the folks who are with us on Facebook and YouTube. And we're gonna keep coming. And it's gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger. We're gonna keep building, and we're glad to see you. And the more questions, the merrier. Bring a friend next time.
Yes.
That's it.
Thanks, everyone.